If we could do one thing to prevent chronic illness and to boost our longevity, it's to maintain a healthy weight. But in today's world, the weight loss industry is saturated with all these diet trends, supplements, workouts, all marketed to lose weight fast. And quite frankly, 3/4 of this industry is utter nonsense and a waste of your time and money. After being 20 pounds overweight in college, I struggled for years to lose the excess weight. And looking back, it was because I was stuck chasing these detox teas, new HIIT workouts, and these heart-healthy salads that I would find on social media. And I wondered why I would remain the same weight despite living this healthy lifestyle. And if you are living a hectic lifestyle like I was, then you don't have the time to test drive all these different trends to see what works for you. So my advice is to put all your eggs in that one evidence-based strategy that will lead to consistent and effective weight loss. So in this video, I wanted to share my no-nonsense, $0 healthy weight loss strategy on a busy schedule. The most science-backed, effective method for weight loss is eating in an intentional calorie deficit. This weight loss strategy by far outperforms any other diet trend or workout trend to date. So why the heck did it take me 10 years to figure this out? And I think there are two reasons to explain this. The first is what I alluded to earlier, in that the weight loss industry is saturated with so many different workout trends, supplements, whatever, to help you lose weight. And that combined with a hectic lifestyle. For the past 10 years, I was on the road to becoming a doctor. So I just didn't have time to test drive everything and finally figure out the unifying theme with all of these trends is that they do encourage a calorie deficit. However, it's not consistent because you're not being intentional about it. For example, a common detox tea is ashwagandha, which is an appetite suppressant. So naturally, you're going to eat in a calorie deficit when you drink this tea. However, this only works for the first 1 to 2 pounds. And a lot of people, including myself, will find that after losing a pound, you are stagnated at that level. And that's because your body ultimately doesn't like to change. So if you're not intentional about eating in a calorie deficit, the weight will not slip off just like that. And the second reason, which was a bit of an aha moment for me, was realizing that having a healthy lifestyle is not the same as losing weight. It's more like a Venn diagram. So the two will overlap at some point. However, they still have very different spheres. For example, back in college, I was a competitive dancer, but I was still 20 pounds overweight. And I wondered why for the longest time if I was doing 20 hours a week of intense exercise. But that was ultimately because I was still eating in a calorie surplus because we had unlimited access to the dining hall. I had midnight Taco Bell runs with my friends, and then there was, of course, the stress eating from exam weeks. So if you're also in the same boat and you're thinking, I work out every single day, I am sweating profusely, but I still cannot lose weight, then you're not broken. It's usually a numbers issue, which I am going to get into in this next section. Okay, so now that we figured out the best way to lose weight is to eat in a calorie deficit, how the heck do we do that? So step one is to find out your calorie deficit. The easiest way is to utilize any of these numerous free online calculators. I personally use calculator.net, which I applaud their name for their simplicity. I've also had success with good old ChatGPT as well. And I find these free online calculators to not be 100% accurate all the time. However, they're pretty darn close. So if this is your first time trying out calorie counting, then I recommend using these free options first. And if this is the first time you're doing this, I advise going for a small deficit to begin with. For me personally, I will never aim to lose more than a half a pound a week. And that's because these crash diets will rarely work. And for most people, you actually will gain more weight back than what you lost. For example, for my wedding, I lost 5 pounds in just 2 weeks, and I felt absolutely horrible during that time. I was so cranky, I was so hungry, and thankfully I was in between jobs because thinking back to it, I don't think I could function as a doctor if I was eating in that much of a calorie deficit. And also after my wedding, I easily gained all that weight back just in a matter of 2 weeks. So always aim for a small deficit. That way the weight loss you achieve will actually be sustainable. The second step is to actually track all of your calories for the day. And no, you don't need to subscribe to some lucrative weight loss app or join an official weight loss group. I found success just by using Google to Google all the calories in all the foods I was eating, and to use the calculator app on my phone to subtract those calories from my daily calorie allotment for that day. And I know what you're thinking. You don't have time to be Googling all the calories in every single food you're eating every day. You're very busy. But a way around this is to keep the same 2 to 3 meals in your rotation for your daily meals. So yes, the first week will be a bit annoying when you're constantly on Google figuring out how many calories are in your favorite snacks and meals. But once you have all of that down, tracking calories will be a breeze. And this method works beautifully for a busy schedule because it takes out the decision fatigue associated with figuring out what you're going to eat for your next meal. For example, when I was in an active calorie deficit, I would literally have avocado toast every night for dinner, and I was so happy. And if you've seen in any of my previous vlogs, I love to have the same green smoothie every morning. And if you guys can't already tell, I am that girl who will literally have the same meal every single day and never get tired of it. Okay, so that covers the meat and potatoes of what you actually need to know to successfully eat in a calorie deficit. However, there's a lot of nuance to doing this successfully, so I wanted to share some tips and tricks for success that I have learned over the years. The first tip is that measuring things out doesn't have to last forever. If you're accurately tracking all of your calories, then for the first week, that's probably what you're doing, and it's adding a lot of additional time to your cook time. However, once you've measured it enough, then your eyes are able to tell, or at least guesstimate to very close. For example, my green smoothie would call for half a cup of Greek yogurt, which I would annoyingly have to measure out while I was in a calorie deficit. However, I noticed that after just a few days, I was able to eyeball it without having to use the measuring cup. The second tip is to meal prep if you can, because if your food is already decided for the week, then you're less likely to end up in the I'm starving and I'll eat anything mode. Furthermore, you will feel uncomfortable when you're eating in a calorie deficit, but that just means it's working. But here are some tips that I've learned about combating hunger. The first tip is to prioritize high protein, high fiber foods because they help you feel fuller for longer. In addition to this, healthy fats are also a great option. These are things like nuts and avocado, but beware because a small quantity can be very calorically dense, so beware of the quantities you're consuming. Furthermore, for this reason, I always have a plant-based protein bar in my pocket, especially when I'm doing the 12-hour shifts at work. And finally, being busy is actually the best time to eat in a calorie deficit. Because for me personally, my downfall always comes with the mindless snacking I get when I'm bored. So during residency, I would purposely plan my calorie deficit months on the times I was working in patient wards, which was the busiest rotation. And finally, I wanted to make one quick note on frozen packaged meals. So yes, I will always support eating a homemade, whole food cooked meal over a frozen processed meal at any time. But if you are in a time crunch, these frozen meals can be a good option. And that is because they already have the calories listed on the package. They have consistent portion sizes, and also they prevent the random snack marathon dinner, or girl dinner, I think it's called. There were numerous times when I was working the night shift in the ICU where I literally had one brain cell left in my brain, and that was going to patient care. So I had no bandwidth for figuring out what I needed to eat, but I was determined to stay in a calorie deficit, and that's where these frozen prepackaged meals were super helpful. Okay, so that's all the tips and tricks I had for eating in a calorie deficit. But I did want to share 2 lifestyle tips that are not directly related to food, but will support you if you're trying to eat in a calorie deficit. And the first tip is to find your domino effect. And this is that one habit that when you do it, gets the ball rolling for making healthy decisions for the rest of your day. For me personally, it's drinking my green juice every morning and to do a morning workout. And my morning workouts are not a crazy 45-minute intense, sweaty kickboxing session. It's usually a 10 to 15 minute workout, often done in my living room because I don't have time to go down to my apartment gym. There were so many mornings where I would literally just get up and dance in my living room for 10 minutes before getting ready for work. And doing these rituals every single day helped to set the tone that in addition to showing up for my patients, I am also showing up for myself. And this helped me to feel empowered and more likely to stick to my calorie deficit I had planned for that day. And your domino habit might be something completely different, like packing your lunch the night before, doing a 10-minute walk after dinner, or just having that glass of water before your morning coffee. And chances are you probably already know what your domino effect is, but whatever it is, find it and do it every single day. Another lifestyle method to support weight loss is to increase your step count. And especially if you're busy and you don't always find the time to fit in a full workout, this is a great secret weapon you can use. A good target for most people is 8,000 to 10,000 steps a day. And this increases what we call NEAT, which stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Basically, calories you're burning from daily movement that is not related to voluntary exercise, eating, or sleeping. And there's a lot of research emerging nowadays supporting NEAT as a tool for weight loss. These studies are finding that people with a higher NEAT are able to burn the same amount of calories as people with a lower NEAT but are doing a daily workout. And easy ways you can incorporate this into your day is to park at the far end of the parking lot, take the stairs when you can, walk while you're on phone calls, and incorporate walking into family time. And if your budget allows for it, I would recommend investing in a walking pad. They do go for about $150 on Amazon, but it was probably one of the most worthwhile purchases last year because it completely transformed my step count and how I viewed work on the laptop. For me personally, I will use my walking pad while I'm pre-charting in the morning for about 45 minutes. And this adds about 4,000 steps to my day. Okay, so let's recap. The most important takeaway for maintaining consistent weight loss is to track your calories and maintain a calorie deficit. And always consult with your doctor before making any lifestyle changes to ensure that it's safe for you. Let me know down in the comments if you guys have any questions or if you want to see videos like my default meals for when I'm in an active calorie deficit, my 3-day busy meal prep plan, or a realistic weekly schedule for fitting in my workouts. Otherwise, if you like that video, please hit the like and subscribe button. I put out new videos every week, and if you want more, I do have a free weekly email newsletter on meditations on health and wellness. Otherwise, I hope you'll have a peaceful rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!